Greetings, adventurers. This is Lorne, your guild advisor, and we are 2 episodes deep into DanMachi Season 4. And this is probably the happiest I've ever been about the anime adaptation since probably when Season 2 was announced. So, in a way, that's kind of sad, but I have finally reached a point where I am optimistic about the future episodes of the anime. So I got that going for me. If you've been following the channel lately, you'll know I've uploaded 2 cuts and changes videos for episodes 1 and 2 respectively. And for this video, it's more of a informal type of video where I will give my impressions on the first 2 episodes of the anime adaptation, as well as go over the OP and ED, and I will leave timestamps in the description, and there should be chapters set up as well for what content I cover in this video. It's going to be more of a free form thing, less formal, off the script, as you say. So first, I want to just watch through the OP and ED. Of course, I've seen them already, but I just want to give my opinions on the specific things in them, as well as the song itself. So we're going to switch over screens here and take a look at the OP. Okay, so my dumb butt actually figured out how to make separate audio tracks from recording. So I can adjust the volumes of what's playing on my desktop and my microphone as I edit a video. So I don't have to worry about this being too loud in order to avoid copyright. So we're going to go and watch this. I'm probably going to pause every now and then and give comments about stuff in the OP, but here we go. And if you guys know about... Oh, we're going to stop real quick. We probably get to the title screen. Yeah, so right here. Yeah, if you guys know me and followed me during Season 3, I wasn't that big of a fan of the OP for Season 3. Like, I liked the song enough. It was just... I didn't like the direction of the visuals, because I'm the type of person that doesn't really like when like there's too many still screens in an OP. It just kind of comes off as lazy. Like, I really like the visuals in Season 2's OP, because the visuals were like very dynamic. Like, even though a shot was like the camera was still, there was still movement in the background or in the foreground, and it was still like visually eye-catching. And I also didn't think that Season 3's OP like elicited the visuals didn't elicit the type of emotions I thought it would have when I saw it at first. Like, I feel like it didn't live up to the hype of what was going to be happening in the later parts of Season 3. That's enough of that tangent. We're gonna continue watching Season 4's OP. Oh man. So yeah. I like this style a lot because it's like kind of like telling a story of what's going to happen. And this is like Belle walking through the it's kind of like everyone that's led up to this point, I guess. I like this a lot too. Who's that character? I wonder who. As in Ryu. I like this. Ryu's my favorite character. Of course I like this. But it kind of gives off like a mysterious vibe here, right? I know why. And this too. A very mysterious vibe. I wonder what's going to happen. I like this. Season 3's OP didn't really have a lot of this type of teasing, I guess. Like, it had like that still shot of Asterius, but that's what it was. Like a very still shot, not very dynamic. So I like this a lot. Oh, man. Yes. I love it. So all the visuals you see are pretty much just Volume 12 with a hint of Volume 13, which is something I also want to mention. Because that means that, like, that 2-core leak... Oh. Yeah, so... But before I get into that, this part right here, like this is a still image, and at first it came off as awkward, but to people that have read the light novels, if you like go through this slowly, you'll see these shadowy images in the background, and you'll know what they are if you read the light novels. So it's actually a cool way that to tease what's coming, but not give it completely away to a person that's just watching the anime with no knowledge of the novel. So I actually like this. Like on the second viewing, it's not as awkward because I know what they're trying to do here. And yes, that thing that Belle does that I also tease in the second video for cuts and changes. But yeah, I've always liked the song that they were teasing. Like, I think this is the best OP song the anime has had. And I really like the visuals, like how they kind of hype up what's happening in this arc. So I like it a lot. It's my favorite OP overall. There's a part of me that wants to say maybe I like the visual style of season 2's OP a bit more. And I like it a lot. The season 2's OP style, not necessarily the song. And the thing about season 2's OP is like when I first saw it, I was extremely hyped for season 2, and then the rest of season 2 happened, and yeah, War Game, not a great adaptation. And then, like I said, like you saw a tease of volume 13 in this OP, and then in season 2's OP, there was no tease whatsoever for the stuff they would cover in volume 8, which is very minimal content which they covered in volume 8 because it was just 2 episodes of a volume that's like 300 pages plus long. Oh god. Yeah, so there's that. We were tricked with season 2's OP. I was tricked. Nothing in there indicated they would adapt volume 8, and when they started adapting volume 8, it was, oh god. Anyway, that's the OP for season 4. We're gonna go skip to the ED now. Alright, so yes, this ED is sung by Ryu's voice actress, Sayori Hayami, my favorite voice actress, and I love the song. I love her voice. And I do like these like detailed character images. Like in ED, it can be very simple. Like I don't need it to be that crazy because it's the end of the episode. We'll just dial things a bit down, be a bit calm. Like a lot of EDs like don't go all out, and this didn't either. But you know this, I will say, like I don't mind Hestia being in here. It just kind of gets progressively more and more awkward because it feels like it's just like some POV of you being on a date with Hestia, and I don't mind it that much. But as we get closer and closer to the ending, you'll know why I think it's incredibly awkward. But yeah, I feel like what would have been better to showcase Hestia here, because I imagine they want to put a focus on Hestia in the ED because she doesn't have much screen time for this arc at all. So they try to put her in where they can, and I don't mind that. But I feel like something that would be more appropriate for this arc, and something less awkward, would be to actually have her in the Hestia Familia home. And we're about to get to the awkward part. I think it would fit more with this season to just have her at the Hestia Familia home, like, and show her like doing chores or meandering around the manor, thinking about the Familia, and that would also blend in well with the images we see of the characters throughout the ED. That would also blend in pretty well. And instead, we get this really, really awkward lean into the viewer for a kiss at, oh god, it's just, it's so awkward to me. Like, I don't mind Hestia. It's just this direction for the ED is very strange to me. Yeah, I love the song. Well, I do want to say one thing. I feel like because this song is sung by Ryu's voice actress, like, you're like, well, it's sung. Why did they get her voice actress to sing this song if Ryu is not even in the actual like ED visuals? I have a feeling that like it's becoming increasingly more obvious that 2 core like 22 episodes leak for DanMachi season 4. It's becoming like increasingly more believable that it's actually true. And I feel like we're gonna keep this ED song for the second core of episodes, and then we'll have more of a focus on Ryu, because yeah, it doesn't make any sense to get her voice actress to sing the ED song, and then Ryu is not in the ED at all. So I have a feeling that's what's going to happen. Like, we'll keep the ED song for this second core of episodes, and we'll see a more Ryu-centric ED. And like, it's a long song, the full song is out, so maybe they'll just like switch to like the second verse for the ED, so it's a slightly different. But I think that's what's gonna happen. But yeah, let's talk about the actual like first two episodes themselves now. Now, as I voiced earlier, I'm a big fan of the first two episodes of this adaptation so far. Like, I've gotten so much more confidence in season 4 than I have ever had for like the anime ever. Like, I think I said in a tweet that like I have never been more excited for DanMachi since like the first season, which was before I started covering the show. I had like this big smile on my face while I was watching episode 2 and then taking notes for the cuts and changes video. Like, I have not been happy about like doing analysis on the episodes like for almost the entirety of season 2 and 3. Like, my morale was at an all-time low during like the end of season 2 because of the way that volume 8 was treated. Like, one of the longest books in the series just turned into 2 episodes and a ton of that content skipped. And because a lot of the content from volume 8 was skipped, it directly had an effect on how season 3 could be handled. Now, I want to be fair. Seasons 2 and 3 had their own set of issues besides like having to cut content to fit into like 12 episode seasons. Like, every adaptation has to do that. They have to cut some content to fit stuff into a TV episode format. But there are a couple of factors that really hurt season 2. One of them being releasing that movie, Heir to Orion, like right before season 2. If you watch Heir to Orion in movie theaters, like at the very end of the movie, they showed like a tiny interview, and like in the interview with the people in charge of the movie, they even said like we did find it difficult to transition from the production of the movie into season 2, and I'm like, yes, I can tell you did during season 2. And yeah, it definitely needed more episodes to cover volume 8 in more detail. And then because volume 8 was not covered in more detail, we have season 3, and season 3 also has its another problem with happening in the middle of a pandemic. I'm sure that did not help. But there was also no way that season 3 would get like a true proper adaptation with just 12 episodes. Like, I was hoping for at least 13, so the final volume could have at least one more episode, because there were things that bothered me that were missing in that final, for like volume 11 specifically. One of which was I didn't think the Bell and Eyes fight was adapted as well as it could have been. Like, I didn't feel the same way about the fight tonally or emotionally. Like, it didn't have as much as a emotional response for me as it did in the novel when I read it. And the other thing that really bothered me with season 3 was just not showing Finn try to talk to Bell during that entire thing, like before the operation to get the Xenos back into the dungeon started. Like, Finn was supposed to talk to Bell, and they completely skipped that, and it kind of just makes Loki Familia look like a complete villain. Like, we're not even going to try and talk to Bell and the rest of ST Familia to see what's going on. We're not even going to attempt the dialogue, but they did attempt the dialogue in the light novel. And it also hints at what Hermes is trying to do, because Hermes actually stops their meeting between Finn and Bell. He stops them from talking in the middle of their discussion. But yeah, that's enough about... I'm talking about season 3 too much. We're talking about season 4, the thing I'm really happy about right now. Like, we're getting a proper amount of episodes, it seems, with 22, because this is covering 3 light novel volumes, the same amount of volumes that season 3 covered, but season 3 only had 12 episodes to work with. Like, it's slightly shorter page-wise, but yeah, 12 episodes with a comparable page length to a season 4 adaptation with 22 episodes, the rumor says. Like, that's a big difference. That's a lot more content that we can put in episodes. But yeah, I'm happy we're getting what we have now. I'm very, very happy. But yeah, anyway, yeah, as you can see, I get on a bunch of tangents. So that's why I structured the weekly videos this time for this season the way they are. So they're like on script, around 10-minute videos, as opposed to weekly comparisons where I have myself on the camera and I just go on the tangents. And as you can see, by the end of season 3, I reached like an hour territory. Like I have made a video that's more than 2 times as long as the episode you have watched. At the same time, some people like seeing this more informal style of video because it's more obvious to see like the passion I have for the series, because I'm not like in that narrator voice just trying to tell you what's happening in the episode and what's different. Here you can see more me, so I get wanting to see that, so here we are. Anyway, yeah, episode 1. What did I like about it? So, like, I said in the weekly video that I liked how a lot of scenes were adapted. Like, the dialogue between Oka and Welf was really well done. I love that. I like how they tried to incorporate Dormal and Lubis because they were skipped from Volume 8, which was way back in Season 2. They didn't appear there. I like how they tried to incorporate them like they had to because they appear later on. In a way, it's almost... I don't want to say it's better done than the light novel, but the light novels did not show them, like, at all until, like, you see Lubis in episode 2. Like, oh, it's that guy from Volume 8 finally reappearing in Volume 12. Here, like, you actually see them before Belle enters the dungeon, so I did like that. Because it was always kind of weird, like, we had these characters introduced in Volume 8, you never saw them again, and then, like, 4 volumes later, it's like, oh, it's that guy. So it's a bit of a more natural transition to seeing them in the dungeon, because we see them earlier in the season. And, like, again, I like the scenes between Daphne, Cassandra, and Lily. I like how that was done. I mentioned they skipped the Hermes apology to Belle. Like, it's possible that they show that later on as a flashback. Like, I hope they do, because to me, it's kind of important. Because, like, dang, like, Belle and Hermes need to talk so we can see how Belle feels about this. Like, I told you how Belle feels about it, but it'd be cool to see, like, Hermes actually there and the scene. I said before that according to a TV episode listing, that we are going to be getting the dentist that was skipped in episode 1 because it originally happens towards the beginning of the novel. I voiced this in some comments, but I think that because they're placing dentists in the episode 6 mark, I think they're going to do that as a type of breather, because we'll get to the end of Volume 12 by episode 5. And I think they want to give the show like a little bit time to breathe because it's a very like high action, high tension volume before we get into Volume 13, which is another high action, high tension volume. So in that way, I think putting the dentist in episode 6 works really well. It also allows them to like place Hestia throughout the season instead of just the beginning, because Hestia does not have much screen time for this arc because they're in the dungeon. She's not going to appear there. So I think this is a way to incorporate Hestia more into the season as well. As well as just for episode 1, they probably just wanted to end the episode in the dungeon. So like, here's episode 1, you know what DanMachi is, let's get back into it. By episode 2, we're going to be in the dungeon doing stuff. I think that's also a part of it. And then the other thing that bugged me upon like that first watch at episode 1 was just Mikito and Haruhime not being in the Hestia Familia meeting. Like I mentioned, it's really weird for those 2 characters to not be involved in that initial expedition meeting because Hestia Familia only has 5 people. So it's weird that the whole Familia is not just in the discussion. Like I mentioned, it's one thing for like a big Familia to have the officers discuss stuff, and then the officers will go around and tell everyone else, like the smaller members, the members that aren't as high in level, what happened in the meeting. But again, Hestia Familia is 5 people plus Hestia. So it was a bit weird, but they kind of addressed that in the next episode, episode 2, like the one thing I missed about that meeting was that like Bell was saying that he wanted to do this together as a familia, and they didn't have that line because Mikito and Haruhime were not there, but then they reincorporated that line in the scene in episode 2, so I like that. So overall, episode 1, it was a very good introduction back into the series, as well as a pretty decent adaptation of the content from the light novels. And we transition to episode 2, which is obviously the episode that made me really, really happy. Because with episode 2, like just in general, we got a lot of explanation of like dungeon mechanics and world building, and a lot of that stuff was not present in past seasons. And that's one of the strengths of the series overall, like in terms of the light novel. One of the strengths of DanMachi is just like the mechanics and the world building. And that was like notably absent in the past 2 seasons. And I think part of a reason for that absence is because they had to cut stuff to fit the volumes they're adapting into those 12 episode seasons. And unfortunately, like, cutting out the world building was a part of that. So I'm really happy we're like starting to see this more, and I like how like the novel will get into the world building as like exposition, and a lot of the novel is in Bell's point of view. You don't really see Bell's point of view that much in the anime. Like you don't have his internal thoughts that much. Like he gets into like a lot of monologues and explains a lot of things in the light novel. But I like how they did it here in the anime. So it's like, I imagine they want to avoid just like having Bell monologue for like 3 minutes as they're doing stuff. It's probably not a good viewer experience, but I like what they did here because they incorporated a lot of the world building as Bell explaining things to other characters. I really like that. Like for example, that one scene where it shows the characters like damaging the dungeon walls, and what that does is make the dungeon focus its resources on restoring the walls instead of spawning monsters, and Bell explains that to like Oka and Chigusa. So in one way, it gives you like knowledge of the world building and mechanics of the dungeon, and it also shows the viewer that Bell is like very knowledgeable about the dungeon now. Like you can see the progression of him as a character. Like in season 1, like he's just a newbie adventurer, and now by the time in season 4, he's explaining stuff to other people. And it's so cool to see that growth shown in that way. Like I love how it was done. And I think a big part of it as well is due to Omori Sensei, the author of light novels, him being more involved in the writing staff this time. I think like that's also part of his imprint. So I really like that. Another thing I liked about the episode was just the character dialogue in general. Like how many characters got to talk. It didn't seem like any specific character was ignored. They all had their parts to play. You can kind of tell they're starting to gel together as a dungeon party. Like it was very awesome to see. Like I was like smiling the whole time, like watching characters talk. Like you think like the highlight of the episode for me would be like, of like normally for people it'll be like, yo, that action scene like really cool at the end against the moss monster. But for me, what made me the happiest and most excited was like the conversations between characters and us getting world building. That's the stuff that excited me the most. It's really funny, I think. that's what got me. And speaking of animations, I'm not sure if everyone's like watching the episode as closely as I am, because I'm obviously watching it closely to do these weekly videos. But like there are a lot of like minor fights where you'll see like monsters appear, the characters like start to attack, and then it just skips to the next scene, like the aftermath. Like that didn't really bug me. I'm not sure if it should be bugging people, because it doesn't make sense to like animate each and every single fight, especially the minor ones. Like they animated the things that they needed to like showcase well, correctly. Like the ones you wanted to highlight are obviously like the Aqua Serpent, Mikito somersault kick. Like yes, that's one they needed to animate. They did a good job with that. And then of course the moss monster at the very end. Like obviously that's the one we want animated well. So it makes a lot of sense to just like do those jump cuts with the minor encounters, and then like focus their attention on the stuff that's like actually a highlight. Like, oh, we killed these blue steel crabs. Like that doesn't need to be a big deal. Like I know a lot of people like the Persona 4 adaptation, like a lot of that game is just dungeon crawling, doing a lot of minor encounters before getting to the boss fight. It wouldn't make any sense for the show to just show you like every single minor fight on the way to the boss fight. So in a similar case, DanMachi is doing the same thing. But yes, that moss monster fight, like I wasn't actually expecting them to kind of animate it as well as they did, because it's like the first encounter, but they did a really good job with it. Like, and the not just the animation, like I really like that dodge that Belle did at the very beginning. It looked really cool. But not just the animation, but the sound design during that fight was really good too, because you could, like, through the sound design, you could like feel the impact of what the moss monster is doing. I know I'm calling it moss monster. I know what it's actually called, but they haven't revealed what the specific name of the monster is. So I'm not going to say it until they actually do that. So to any light novel readers, that's why I'm just calling it moss monster. But I do have like one minor worry, and I'm not sure if it's warranted or not, but I did notice, like I mentioned in the weekly video, that like the area around Lewis's missing arm was like kind of darkened for like to tone down the gore, I guess. And then like I mentioned, like in the light novel, the moss monster is actually holding Lewis's severed hand, or severed arm, I should say. And they cut that part out of the episode. The only reason that worries me, like if they're like actually intentionally toning down the gore aspect, that kind of worries me for what happens later on in the arc. And people who have read the light novels will know what I'm talking about. The end of volume 13 specifically. I am slightly worried if they're gonna like tone down the gore there, because a lot of what makes a certain scene have the impact it does there is the gore aspect, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. It's a minor worry, but it's still something in the back of my mind. And the other thing I wanted to touch back on, I did mention in the episode 2 weekly video, was that they specifically kind of changed the context behind one of the lines that Welf says. Because before, in the light novel, he said, "Oh yes, I've seen this undercoral before in my time in Hephaestus Familia." But then in the anime, he specifically says, "I visited Hephaestus," and he specifically meant the goddess herself. And he saw the undercoral then. So it might be wishful thinking, but it does make me think, like, why would they change it? Why would they change that line to specifically visiting her? Unless they're, like, maybe alluding to the fact that they might flash back to that later and incorporate scenes they skipped in Volume 8 that could happen between Welp and Hephaestus then. Like, that would... Like, if that's what they're doing, like, I want to say I called it. I really hope that's what they're doing. Because I think those conversations between Welf and Hephaestus are going to be important later on. Light novel readers know why. But yeah, I think that's going to be important. So I hope that's what they're doing. All in all, guys, very high on episode 2, and I really hope they continue this momentum. To me, it's becoming more and more clear that this really is going to be a 2-core adaptation. Like, there's like too many signs now, like way too many signs. Like, they wouldn't be going at this, like, kind of, it's not even a slow pace, because we're 100 pages in, but if they were to continue on this pace, it would be literally impossible to adapt all the way through 14 to 1 core. So yeah, very likely that this is 2 cores. Makes me really happy. So I think we are going to continue, like, having a great adaptation because of that, because they don't have to cut out so much. And with Omori Sensei on staff and his influence clearly being felt through a lot of the world building and mechanic explaining remaining in the show, like, it's a really good sign for what's to come in the future. But yeah, very positive, guys, on these first 2 episodes. I don't know when I'll be doing another one of these types of videos. Like I mentioned before, I'll do these types of videos if, like, there's a if I really want to talk about, like, what happened in the episode and want to get my opinion out there outside like those weekly cuts and changes videos. But more than likely, I'll probably go ahead and do like an impressions review type of video again. when we finish adapting the Volume 12 content. And that should be, well, if Denitus is episode 6, then it will probably be after episode 6. So unless something like crazy happens that I want to talk about, that's probably what another one of these types of videos is going to happen. So for those of you that missed this type of content and them being ranty and super long, look forward to it, I guess. But yeah, very high on these first 2 episodes, like the happiest I've ever been about the anime, like ever. I will next see you guys for episode 3's Cuts and Changes video. If you want to see more DanMachi content, go ahead and like the video, sub to the channel, follow me on my socials. This is Lauren, your guild advisor, signing out.